Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you here. We're competing with beautiful weather and many other activities, but I'm glad to see all of you here. If you will excuse me, I must begin with a few housekeeping items before we get started. First of all, I'm asking everyone to please ensure that your cell phones are turned off. That's very important. The sign-in sheets for students will not be available until 7:30 outside the room at the information table. For ladies in high heels having to leave the room from time to time, please tiptoe quietly because we are recording the session. I'd also like to mention that during the question and answers part of the program, that you must speak into the microphone. So microphones will be brought to you because, again, it's a matter of recording the session. Now, many of us here in this room know relatively little about the country of Benin, and you are here to learn. Benin, formerly known as Dahomey, is one of Africa's most stable democracies. Benin is the location of what was formerly known as the Slave Coast, and it is possible that some of my ancestors came from there. Its culture and its indigenous practices have influenced countries as far away as Haiti and Brazil. The International Press Institute has indicated that Benin has one of the most vibrant media landscapes in Africa. According to Reporters Without Borders, press freedom in Benin is in very good shape, and we know that that means that democracy is well anchored in the country. But there is something else about Benin that is very special to me personally that I would like to share with you. In my younger days, and believe me, that was a long time ago, while living in West Africa, there was a young man from Benin who was part of a group to which I belonged of young Africans who were close friends from diverse countries, and I was the only non-African in the group. This young man was respected by all of us for his many qualities, including his intellectual brilliance coupled with humility, his sterling integrity, his multifaceted competencies, as well as his loyalty and graciousness as a friend. His name is Thomas Boni Yayi, who became president of Benin in March 2006 and again in 2011. The day that he was first elected, I had no doubt that Africa had gained a sorely needed role model for excellence in leadership, and his track record has proven that to be true. Recently, he also became president of the African Union. Fairleigh Dickinson University signed a memorandum of understanding with the African Union in September of 2009, and we are providing technical assistance for the development of the Pan-African University to the African Union. So I am sure that you understand why it is a very special pleasure for me to welcome Ambassador Jean-Francis Régis Zinsou to Fairleigh Dickinson University. Ambassador Kamal, we truly appreciate your efforts in making it possible for Ambassador Zinsou to be with us this evening. Thank you.
Ambassador Zinsou, thanks to the fact sheets which have been distributed to everybody, we now know where Benin is located, because most of us thought it was in Asia. And so it is a discovery to find that it's in Africa, and that you are the distinguished ambassador of that country at the United Nations. But you have a very special relationship with Fairleigh Dickinson University. And that relationship is that your son has been a student here at FDU and is now a prominent lawyer in New York as a result of the studies that he completed at Fairleigh Dickinson. So welcome to Fairleigh Dickinson.
Thank you, Ambassador Kamal. It's a pleasure for me.
Let us begin, or let me begin by asking you some questions. Benin is an island of peace in a West Africa that is beset by problems. All that one hears about West Africa is problems in Liberia, problems in Nigeria, problems in Mali, problems in Senegal. Everything seems to be going haywire, but not in Benin. There seems to be an extraordinary sense of stability and leadership in Benin. And I'd like you to tell us how that has happened. How is it that you have not been influenced by the West African disease, which is of ethnic strife and breakdown of security and multifarious problems in all these countries of West Africa? So what makes you so special? Is it your history? Is it your politics? Is it your culture? Is it your population? Is it the women in Benin? Why are you so good? Tell us.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Kamal. Those are real questions full of meaning, and I am very grateful for the university, Fale Dickinson University, for inviting me to participate in this event, and I would like to take this opportunity really to explain to you the spirit of Benin, to let you a little bit have a, so to say, deep sense of what is the spirit of Benin. We have a word in Benin which is called, I will say it as we say it ourselves, Beninoiserie. Beninoiserie, which means the spirit of Benin. It has positive sides and it has also negative sides. But the whole make the citizen of Benin, so to say, a special case in West Africa, as you are you pointed out. Benin is a group of is composed of a group of ethnies which has been brought together by the colonial power. There were, before the colonial era, kingdoms and also what we call small republics in that area which is covered today by Benin. There was one central kingdom in Dahomey, which is some 130 kilometers from the coast, and we had in the more remote north also many other central kingdoms which were competing with each other. And as you know, we had also a history of slavery, and slavery was nourished by this competition between the different kingdoms, and all this in the era, in the area which was covered by many ancient empire, many ancient political formation. The one which is most known being the one of Empire of Benin. And all countries, Nigeria, Benin, Cameroon, part of Cameroon, Togo, consider themselves to be related to that ancient empire. I'm telling that because, I'm saying that to you because that has also a role to play in what Benin is and why Benin is a stable country. Because we are a people of many, coming from many horizons, but also a mixture. Everybody is related with everybody. That's one of the principal rules of Benin state, and whatever happens is considered to be in the same family. We have a sense of belonging together, and this helps to solve many of our problems. I will say that nonetheless, we have a diversity of ethnical groups which are very, so to say, specific, and which try to sell themselves, to present themselves as such. So we are not just one nation yet. Benin is not yet a nation. Benin is a country where the, so to say, loyalty to the center state is still weak. We are still working to have a very integrated nation. We are not yet there. And this because of a diversity of languages. We have up to 60 ethnical groups in the boundaries of Benin. And in the north, the language which are spoken cannot be understood. In the south, people from the south do understand each other to some extent, and people from the north also to some extent. But there is a clear, so to say, separation between the north and the south at the in the cultural, so to say, sense of a word, because in the north you have more Muslim, Islamic people, Islamic ethnical groups, and in the south you have more traditional animist people who practice voodoo, traditional religion, Catholics, and as you know, we have around 30% of Catholics in the country, and we have some 70 to 20% of Muslims, and something there is a say, we say all that being there, but we have still 100% of traditional religion adherence in the country, because the religion is considered as part of a culture. Each family has some practices, rituals which are related to the ancient past and which are there and coexist with the practices which are brought by other influences that Benin has taken up in through the history. We are now a country which is seen as a democratic country, but it was not always the case. It was not always the case because in the Kingdom of Dahomey, there was a centralized, very centralized rule, a pattern of domination, and there were a society which was very scaled at different levels, and we moved from that through the colonial era into the modern society, which is based on, I will say, so to say, patterns of organization, which was brought in by the colonial power. Nonetheless, when we got our independence in 1960, when we got our independence, we were in a republic. With a president, with a constitution which was considered to be there for the sake of having a constitution. It was never seen as a set of rules that has to be applied, and the ruler was the ruler because it was the one who was elected to be the first among us and to be there when we need to have a ruler, because Beninese want always to do things their own way. Each one, when each one can go and do his business, then it's enough. We don't care very much for politics. Some are interested in politics, they do it, but most of the time we don't care for politics when everything is going well.
I want to interrupt you, because before you go into modern politics, I want to take you back into the Empire of Benin, L'Empire de Benin, because this was a huge empire.
Definitely, you're right.
And it was a very varied empire, because, for example, the art which emerged out of Benin, the bronzes, are part of an extraordinary collection in the museums of the world. And so the question that I want to ask is, this empire was great, it was varied. How did it disappear and become a small sliver of land, which is Benin today with a total population of 9 million, instead of parts of all the surrounding countries? What led to the change?
You're right to raise such an issue. It's a very important issue of history of Africa. The Empire of Benin was created sometime in the 12th century, and it has developed through the centuries until the colonial era. And it is during, as you know, as much as 36 rulers of the empire was documented and identified, and they brought a very substantive contribution to organization, to architecture, to arts, as you said. And I have been myself digging into the way the bronze, what is called the bronze of Benin, is made. It's a very sophisticated process of so to say, a treatment of metals, and it had generated a real, very rich culture, cultural, not only for those bronze statues which are the remnants of history dispersed now around the world, but also in so to say, interior decoration and all that. You have really, they have reached a very high level of perfection in their works. But what happened was that the colonial, the Europeans wanted to take control of the territory which belongs to that kingdom, and it came to a war. And this war led to the destruction of the, so to say, the center of this, so to say, empire. And as you know, the last emperor was exiled to Calabar, and the city was later integrated, the center was later integrated into the Nigeria, today's Nigeria. So the center of the empire of Benin is located in Nigeria, not in Benin. So, if you go to the Benin city in Nigeria, you will see today the last king, we don't call it anymore emperor, but the last king of the Edo state, which is the center of the empire of Benin. Benin took the name of, Benin was formerly called Dahomey. And Dahomey was a kingdom which was, so to say, founded in the 17th century. And this kingdom was founded, according to the legend, on the belly of a local prince who was, so to say, who was destroyed, who was killed during a battle by immigrants. Immigrants came and requested from him, according to the legend, a piece of land, and from every day the immigrants continued to request more and more, and then it came to a battle, and the chief immigrant killed him and established his kingdom on his belly, on his tomb, and which is gave the name of Dahomey, Dahomey being on the tomb or on the belly of Da. And this was the central kingdom in the place where we call today Benin. And it's when the colonial power came, they took this name of Dahomey, which was the kingdom which resisted most to colonial conquest, and gave to a territory which comprehended many other kingdoms which were in the surrounding. And this was an issue because the kingdoms which found themselves together under that name were historically fighting not to belong to that part of a country. And then one of the leaders of a country whom you may have known, today General Kerekou, when he took power in 1972, he made it a pride issue for him to be, so to say, leader of a country where each citizen of a country feels himself concerned when we call the name of a country. And that's why he changed the name from Dahomey, which was a name which could not integrate everybody, to the name of Benin. Benin being an entity, a bigger entity, to which all the people of the place, or that territory, belongs once ago, in the history, you see. So it's just like the Mali today is not the Kingdom of Mali, the Empire of Mali as it was in the past, but it's a name to, so to say, commemorate, to celebrate this bright past that we had. And that's the same spirit which brought us to take the name of Benin instead of Dahomey, which was divisive name, and Benin being a name which take everybody on board. And we feel really today more, so to say, concerned when you call us Beninese than Dahomean. Dahomean was a name which was only, so to say, considered to be including the people who were directly under the, so to say, power of the king of Dahomey.
Yes, but then you surprise me enormously, because it appears that your past is heavily influenced by two events. The first is slavery.
You're right.
Because you were the slave coast, and all of us here in dark-skinned people in the United States have their roots somewhere between Benin and Liberia and Gambia. But the second event is colonialism, European colonialism, which destroyed the stability of structures which existed in West Africa and converted it into small slivers of land with artificial borders, many of which borders continue to have problems today.
You're right,
and so,
definitely.
With this background of two major events, slavery and colonialism, I still don't understand why you are such a happy country.
Those are past events which are continuing to, so to say, have their bearing on our life of today. Benin being a former, so to say, promoter of so to slavery. Slavery, let me tell you how it worked. We know that we are in a process of improvement of mankind with the, so to say, establishment every day of new norms that takes us to a higher standard of humanity, higher standards of adherence to values. But in the past, when the kings were warring against each other, if a city is conquered, you take all the men there as prisoners, and at the end of a year, you sacrifice them. That was the practice. You just kill them. And you take women and you integrate them in your society. You take children and you raise them as your own, and then the land that you have conquered loses all all kind of resistance strength, and can be integrated totally in your kingdom. So that was the practice. Instead of that practice, one day the white man came and said, I need the people to go and work in the plantations. So for the king, it was something, he was doing good. Instead of killing the people at the end of the year to sell them, and by it became a trade. It became a trade. So when you see that, this is something that which we relate with philosophy today in Benin, because those people from which the slaves were taken are still there today. And those who were taking them, fighting them, take them to slavery are also there today. And you cannot imagine one of the cases that our constitutional court has to deal with today is that a family come to court and say, the people who are on that land were my slaves, were the slaves of our family, and they are not entitled to own that land. And we want them to be expelled today from that land.
Yes, but
You see, so those are issues that we are still dealing with today, but we are dealing with them with today's value, and we are dealing them with our capacity to dialogue, and we are dealing them with the norms of international society to which we want to belong strongly.
Yes,
So,
Ambassador Zinsou,
Yes,
what you have said is something extremely dangerous, because what you have said is that Dahomey, or Benin, was a collaborator in the slave trade. And I know that Britain and the United States has not apologized until today for the history of slavery. But have you apologized for the history of slavery if
Yes.
you were a collaborator?
Yes, this was done in 1999 when President Kérékou invited the leaders of the diaspora to Benin, the religious leaders, the cultural leaders of the diaspora in Benin, and staged a conference which was called a Conference on Forgiveness and Reconciliation, and publicly apologized in the name of the whole country for the practices of the past which has contributed to this slavery, and which has contributed in bringing out of the country sons and daughters of that country. And out of that, we have launched a process of, so to say, return. A process of return where an appeal was launched to all Africans outside of Africa who has suffered from this slave trade to come back and reunite with the mother continent to bring its energies together for a new upheaval, for a new revival of the continent. And out of that, we in Benin established a yearly festival of the gospel, which drained every year until 2007 to Benin, the, so to say, musical groups of Americas, coming from all parts of Americas, North and Southern Africa, America, Brazil, Caribbean, to Benin yearly to celebrate. And this was also connected to the celebration, to the actions that Benin took during the celebration of the 500 year of discovery of America. And as you know, 1992, this was celebrated, and during that time, all the historical events, all the historical sites related to relationship between Africa and America has been revived. And for instance, in Ouida, the city of Ouida, where there was a center, gate for slave trade in, at the coast of Atlantic, in the slave coast, there was a monument, a very prominent monument, which has been erected with the help of UNESCO, which is called the Door of Non-Return. And beside that door, there was another one which was created, which was called the Door of Return, where it creates a historical sites that many African Americans and Brazilians and Caribbean citizens come to see. And also I will tell you that from this, so to say, a movement of return, we have also opened the land for settlement by African Americans who wants to return to Africa. And there are many families who return with everything, with their children, and establish themselves in Benin and are part of Beninese society today. This is still happening every day, where whoever wants to return back to Africa is welcome in Benin and will find his place to live.
I don't want to go too deep into slavery because it is truly one of the serious blots on the history of human civilization.
You're right. We recognize that.
But that being said, the recent figures that I have read are that 200 million Africans were picked up
You're right.
and transported across the Atlantic.
You're right.
And out of them, 75% died
In the ocean.
on the way and were thrown into the sea to be fed to the sharks. And what I want to know is that out of this total, most of us had heard of Gambia and Senegal as the doorway of slavery. And today you are telling us that Dahomey had a major role also. In comparative terms, roughly what percentage came out of Gambia and what percentage came out of Dahomey?
I will,
Roughly, give or take.
Yes, I will tell you, I was attending an event that we organized in the UN 2 weeks ago for the celebration of heroes and victims of slavery. We do that yearly, 25th of March, according to a resolution adopted by the General Assembly. And as you know, we are out also now to raise funds to erect a permanent memorial to slavery in the United Nations. We are working on that. And during that event, I saw a chart showing the different trends of slave trade which connected Africa to America. And Benin, let me tell you, was not the most important center for this trade. You cannot imagine the thickest line of transfusion of slaves to America was in the part between Cameroon and Angola.
Oh.
You see, between Cameroon and Angola, that's why you have a big tree, and others were only the branches to it. And that from Cameroon and Angola, it was direct to Brazil. From Benin, it was to the Caribbean, and some went to America. But the thickest line was the one from, so to say, Cameroon, Gabon, and Angola to Brazil.
Okay,
So,
let me change the subject to another very serious problem, and that is of colonialism, because colonialism in Africa cut up the continent into artificial countries with artificial borders. And so it is quite clear that the frontiers of Benin are totally artificial.
you're definitely right. There is no kind of rules and no kind of explanation except what happened after the Berlin Conference, which was held in 1885, and which divided the cake among what was considered as the cake among the colonial powers. And I will tell you, this, as I was mentioning it, put together people who had no connection before, and this also separate people which were together. And as you can see, when you go along the borders, you find on each side of the borders of Benin the same people, and they ignore every day those borders, and they live together, and this is what we call in our jargon of political science, porous borders.
Okay,
Yes.
now we know what happened in the Congress of Berlin, because the leaders who were there were drinking a lot of whiskey and brandy, and when they were completely drunk in the evening, they would pull out a map and a blue pencil and begin to draw lines in a state of utter drunkenness. And those are the borders of Africa today.
You're right.
Really made by drunks. And now, my question is, given the fact that you have artificial borders with divided families and divided ethnicities, how is it that the ethnic problems of the North and the South, which you have in Nigeria, or North and the South, which you now have in Mali, how is it that you don't have those North-South problems? What has led you to escape this North-South thing, which exists even in the United States? Everybody knows that there is a South here called Texas, which has absolutely no relations with the Yankee land in which we are sitting here today. They speak a different language, they have a different culture, and from time to time, even a different flag. And so, how did you escape this North-South divide, which is so prevalent in other countries in Africa?
You are very right to raise this issue. It's a very important issue. Benin is a surprising country, and I will tell you that when we see all the problems that others have, we find value in in our way of life. We find additional value in our way of life, because the way of life in Benin is that we consider that we are all different, yet connected. That's why there are no boundaries between the people in Benin. And in each family, you may find the same, all the religions practiced in the country. My sister married a Muslim. And my secretary has a brother who is Muslim. He's Christian, he's Catholic. And that's the way we see things. We don't consider boundaries as differences as boundaries not to cross. And we mingle as much as possible, so that I will tell you, people from the north like to take women, wives in the south, and it's not also different from people from the south. People from the south, they like to take bright-skinned women, which are more numerous in the north, and we are so all related with each other. And the fact that we not only are related, but we belong to ethnical groups which have leaders which have a lot of authority on the people in the country, and people respect, because all that is also linked also with the practice of voodoo. In the practice of voodoo, you have a set of set of rules that brings you under a kind of social watch. That prevents you from escalating, it prevents you from going to the edges, and all that put together makes us to have this situation where we rather come along with each other through dialogue, we rather come along through compensation, and we rather come along through, so to say, our adherence to a common future that we desire.
Yeah,
a common future that we desire from the country, and that was what was very important during the national conference, where in 10 days in 1990, from 19 February to 19 to 28 February, a country which was at the brink of collapse came together and designed a new future, a new society project, as we usually say it, for the future, and which has led us, which has granted us with the stability that we enjoyed since 1990.
Well,
but you're right.
But forgive me,
Yes.
perhaps being very French, I'm carried away a bit too much by sex. But it appears to me that the happiness between the different tribes is because of the attractiveness of the women. And that this is what I've understood from what you said. That people were looking for attractive wives and they went wherever they could find them. That led to greater happiness.
One thing I will tell you, you know that in the kingdom of Dahomey, there were a lot of princes and there were a lot of princesses. But the princes were not allowed to marry the princesses.
Who did they marry? Each
the
other?
The prince has to go and look for his wife far beyond his own tribe. And he has to go and wage a war and bring the wife from there, and only that wife which is brought from abroad can generate the new king. The prince, how do you call it? The crown prince can be only a first young boy which was generated in a union between the king and a woman from abroad. And you see, this made of Beninese people, people who have the eye beyond their own, so to say, group, ethnical group. And you can imagine I went so far as Madagascar to find my own wife.
Oh. Okay, now it appears to me that when you have problems around you, in all the countries around you, and you escape those problems, that this can be only because of enlightened leadership in the country.
You're right.
And so I want you to talk a bit about President Yai and the leadership of Benin, because is this a trickle-down concept which has created this balance and harmony which makes Benin a happy country?
I will tell you that Yayi Boni is, President Boni Yayi is...
no, just a minute. Yes. Is it Yayi Boni or Boni Yayi?
Boni Yayi. Boni is his first name, and Yayi is his family name. And I know that many has difficulties with this. His full name being Thomas Boni Yayi.
Okay.
Thomas Boni Yayi.
And why do you call him Yayi Boni?
Because all the time, according to the practices in some families, the name of the father is considered to be more important than your own name and comes always before.
Okay.
So, as we have today in the UN also, you know that the family name of the Secretary General is Ban, and we don't say Mr. Kimun Ban, we say Ban Kimun. So it's the same in many parts of the country. The name of the father comes before the name with the given name. Okay. So President Yayi is a young president who took over through a democratically organized election in the process that of democratization which started in 1990. He took over after the president of the republic who was running the country has finished his 2 terms according to the constitution. As you know, in our constitution, each president can run the country only in 2 terms of 5 years. 2 terms of 5 years. So
that was the situation in Senegal also. But the president of Senegal had no difficulty trying to get a 3rd term, and fortunately he lost the election for that 3rd term.
There is no risk that we came in such a situation in Benin, because you can imagine President Kerekou, who was there who was ending his 2nd term in 2006, was graceful enough and wise enough to consider that this was his 2nd and last term, and organize transparent elections where we had a situation where there were 2 opponents, one belonging to the old political class, supported by a group of, by his own party, but being in opposition to the other political parties in the country, because he was considered to be of a direction which was not so much representative of what Benin stands for. Benin stands for independence, autonomy, self-determination, and during those elections that we had, President Yayi was elected because he could get 75% of the voters expressed votes. Why? Because all the political parties rallied behind him who were against the other opponent. The other opponent got only 25% because that was his own value on the scene. But President Yayi could get 75% running as an independent politician. And not even a politician, running as an independent candidate because he was not a politician. President Yayi was a young banker who has been leading for 10 years before that the regional bank of Africa, of West Africa, which is called West African Development Bank. He was there running this bank when he was approached by some elders of the country to become the president, to stand for presidency, to take over the leadership of a country. And he was supported by major political parties in the country, and that's how he came. And when he came to power, he came under the motto to change the country. He wanted really to put Benin on modern path and to heal the country of the woes which were, so to say, impeding its development. And one of them is fighting corruption. He came really with a new leadership, a new, so to say, vision for the country. The vision being to really use the energy, dormant energy, which is lying in the country, which is the energy of the rural population, energy of the young people, to really shape the new politics of the country. And this he has been doing, and you know that he has been re-elected in 2011, March 2011, for a second term. And this election happened in a pattern which surprised many people, and they are still trying to understand what happened. And what happened is very simple. We had in 2006 a new president who has been elected who said, I will run this country in a different way. I have been elected not just to sit in the seat and come back again in 5 years' term to request your votes, but I have been elected to work with you every day for 5 years to achieve common goals. And he was accused of being a populist president, but he was every day on the scene. He was every day caring for the people. He was every day launching new projects, so to say, implementing his vision with the energy of the people. And one thing that he did very good that served him was to launch a microcredit program for the women. And each woman in the country, or even young men in the country who want to undertake anything, has the possibility to be supported by a microcredit, so to say, loan, which helps generate revenue. So, for instance, I will tell you more than almost 1 million women got a microcredit from him. And microcredit works in a sense that when you got a credit and you pay back, you get some more. And he has been using these microcredits projects to integrate in the formal economy so to say, women and other active part of the population. Because, you know, we have a problem in the country is that a large proportion of the economy is not accounted for in the statistics of the country because of the fact that they are not registered. But with this microcredit project, he's trying to bring those people who were excluded from the bank system into the formal economy. And this has done very good to him because you can imagine at the eve of the elections, he went to the chiefs all around the country, and almost 90% of the chiefs spoke out and said to the population, we have to re-elect this guy because he's doing good things for our people. And that's why, for the first time in our history of 20 years of democracy, we had a president who has been re-elected at the first round of elections organized. And these elections were organized in a pattern which had something specific. Since 1990, we have been organizing elections on a handwritten voters list, where villages can be created from overnight by people who want to rig elections to get more voters in a region where they can bring people from from the other side of the border. I told you, from the other side of the border. And this was not possible in 2011 because those elections that we held in 2011 were conducted on the basis of what we called digitalized permanent electoral list, which was established on biometric basis, which means that when you stand, you have your photo on your electoral voters paper, voter's identity card, and people can see who you are. And with this, people who are dead could not vote, people who live outside the country could not vote, and we brought our reality to the normal size of it. And
but why do you not want dead people to vote?
Because
dead people have rights also.
They do have rights, but they cannot walk to the voters' bus. Okay. And you are supposed to walk to the voters' bus, and you are supposed to be registered as such. And voters voting are just human beings which have rights of citizens. If you go and take people from the other part of the border to come and vote for you because you belong to the same tribe and they come to support you, this is something which is not good for democracy in the country you are living in. And this has been a problem in the past, and we have now found the way to stop that.
Okay, let me ask you one final question. You referred earlier to something called voodoo.
Yes.
Now, I don't know what is voodoo. I understand Judaism, Christianity, Islam. I even understand animism. But what is voodoo? How does it work? What does it do? Why do people believe in it? I thought voodoo was something specific to Haiti. And suddenly I find that you are talking about voodoo in Dahomey and Benin.
You're right to be amazed how much Benin has roots all over the world. And voodoo is considered to be something which is related to the ancient history of mankind. Because voodoo is, yes. Because
voodoo,
if you go, you may have voodoo in your own tribe.
Slow down.
You may have voodoo in your own tribe.
Yeah,
because
slow down. You say voodoo is the ancient history of mankind?
Yes. Voodoo is related to the ancient history of mankind.
Explain.
You have the Celts in Britain. You have a Celtish culture in Britain. You have voodoo is the way mankind connected to nature, and it's on the basis of a set of rules which has been transmitted from generation to generation, and as you know, even Christianism has integrated part of the ancient culture. If you go ask why we celebrate Christmas on 25th, you'll find many histories related to that. Voodoo is a set of rules, of practices, of rituals which are deeply connected to the culture of the people. And I will tell you, voodoo that you find in Haiti is brought to Haiti by the people who left Benin. And voodoo has its cradle in Benin. We say that because we have been good in federating all the trends. You know, when there are ceremonies in Benin, all the people from all over the surrounding places, Ghana, so to say, Nigeria, Niger, they stream to Benin, like in pilgrims, to participate in those ceremonies. And as you know, people that you find now in the coast of Africa, in many of African countries of West Africa, they came from the Nile region. They streamed in the past from the Nile region. They came to populate these things, and you know there are even stories saying that Yorubas, for instance, in Nigeria have 12 lost tribes of Israel, of Egypt. So all that has to be seen in a common sense of humanity, and what you have to separate from voodoo is black magic. Voodoo is not black magic. I will give you a sense of what voodoo is. When you have a new child, in my tribe, for instance, you have to hide him until you find a new moon. And when the new moon comes out in the evening, you take the child out and show it to the moon. And that day you give him salt to eat. It's his entrance, it is the day of entrance in the society. It's the day of his baptism. You baptize people also in Catholic religion. It's done another way. But all that are expression of humanity, expression of culture. And this is what you call voodoo. It's a way of understanding and interpreting the relationship of humanity on the earth and in the, so to say, in the universe. And this is something that you cannot deprive the people from. And that's why when even Africans were taken from Africa to America, without of nothing, they regenerated and they recreated those types and even mingled them with other cultures that they crossed on their way. So that's what I will tell you, religion, voodoo. Voodoo is a religion, and that's why when the Pope, John Paul II, came to Benin the first time, he had no difficulty in having a meeting with the leaders of a voodoo religion in Benin. And he has done that twice before he died. And when his successor, Benedict XVI, came to Benin last November, he did also the same. So you see, voodoo is something which belongs to the people, to their culture, and to the way of life. And as you know, one thing that you have also to take into account is that voodoo is not just a set of belief, it's is also a set of creation, and not only creation through songs, but also through art. Which is also something which is very enriching for the culture of Africa. And as you know, whatever artwork you take in Africa, it has something far beyond the just search for beauty. It has something spiritual. It has something mythical.
Yes, but then how is it that we, ignorant as we are, and I acknowledge my ignorance, how is it that we confused voodoo with these funny black magic practices of funny dances and wringing the necks of chicken and doing these things which are done in Haiti? How did that confusion arise?
Let me tell you, when you see people sacrificing a chicken, it's according to their beliefs. In the Bible, you saw the goat which was sacrificed for saving the child. So in Americas, you find the Incas continuing, and of Indians, native Indians of America, continuing to practice blood sacrifice as a way of connecting to the gods, to what they believe to be the gods. So this is part of history. And one thing you have to also know is that the practice can be diverted in ways to harm, or they can be used also in ways positive way. And voodoo is the positive practice of relationship between man and God, and voodoo is the relationship built on rules, set of rules which are called the rules of nature, which has also helped Africa, for instance, through the history, to maintain balance between nature and human beings. For instance, we have in Benin what we call the sacred forest, and where you go, you find trees which are very big and which are untouchable, which are venerated, and all that is a part of the search for a right relationship between the mother nature and the human being as part of the universe.
Let me conclude before I hand over to the provost that it's most impressive to see the intensity of your feelings and the general happiness, which I suppose is partly due to your being from Benin, but in my opinion, more due to your finding an attractive wife in Madagascar. And so that being said, I am sure that you must have been delighted yesterday in the United Nations when they were discussing the proposal by Bhutan to have an index of gross national happiness as an index by which all countries should be measured, not by gross national income, not by per capita income, not by the Human Development Index, but the happiness index of peoples. And so I suspect that you and Benin are going to be ranked very much on the top of that particular index.
Thank you very much. I think this is something very important because we have to go beyond the numbers and really deal with the people, with their feelings, with their balance, and with their future. One thing I would like to tell you before we close this part of the discussion is that Benin's stability rests on pillars. The pillar of transparency, the pillar of national consensus, and the pillar of the submission of the army to democratic civilian rule.
And the pillar of the women.
There are a lot of women in our armies.
Mr. Provost, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Now we have 2 microphones, and the ambassador will be taking a few questions for us. Do you have questions? You must speak into the microphone because, again, we are recording.
Hey. You spoke earlier about the rules, the set of rules about voodooism. I was wondering if you could just expand on it a little, maybe tell us a couple of the other rules. You mentioned child, new moon, and the salt. Is there anything else like that, I suppose?
Thank you very much. Each voodoo practice has its meaning, and each society has developed through history ways of adapting to their realities that let them survive. That's what voodoo is about. And you have rules that were set up by the ancestors that are transmitted to you, and this makes you part of it. The fact that you observe them makes you part of your family and creates your identity. So it's the way it works. And there are rules, for instance, which are very simple. You should not sleep, for instance, with the wife of somebody else. It's very simple. It's for social balance. Or should respect your elders, or you should care for your children, or you should, so to say, not eat this or eat that. Those are, and there are a lot of things that you are directed to do such way as was, so to say, described, as was determined by your elders, and things that you are prevented to do. And African societies have, and Benin, especially in Benin, each family has its taboos, and taboos being rules that you should not transgress, and whenever you transgress them, have the consequence immediately. Me, for instance, I should not eat, so to say, in our family we don't eat pork, and if I eat pork without eating it, I feel something in my body. It's in the kind of incompatibility which is there that I have to cope with. And some things are, perhaps they are determined by genetical diseases which appeared in the family, which were set up, and for which rules were set up to avoid them. So those are common sense, sometimes common sense rules, sometimes socially based rules, and all that is, so to say, implemented not only with the current generation. It's implemented and is enforced in a way that you are supposed to be offending your ancestors if you don't respect them. And this creates a kind of social pressure that keeps the society in, so to say, in order. And there are in the society groups or organs which are devoted, traditional society, which are devoted to caring for the rules to be observed by every people in the family. So all that makes a social context that gives sense to the rules that are related with Vodou. And you know that each Vodou has its divinities. The divinities has priestess caring for them, and adepts, so to say, servicing those divinities. And all that together makes a society.
I have a supplementary question.
Yes, please.
Because you have used the word each voodoo. That means that there is not one voodoo, but several voodoos.
As you have many saints in the Christian religion, you have a set of belief that its own scale of divinity, scale of accession to divinity. All the Vodou, I will tell you, Vodou has a central belief of God. Vodou is considered to be a monotheist religion, but there are lower level participations to this divinity, which are determined according to the culture and according to the tradition. For instance, we have different Vodous doing different things. Utility connected to the capacity, the power of each of them. But the main Vodou, main God, main belief of divinity being identified. No, it's not a polytheist.
No, monotheist.
Monotheist.
Yes.
It's monotheist. It's called, it has a name in each language, and is considered to be the overall, so to say, power of humanity.
Okay.
Okay, great. We have another question?
I see that there's a question from the couple in this room, which has visited, I think, 192 of the 193 member states of the United Nations.
I just wanted to ask you, do you have a book like the Bible or the Quran for voodoo? Is there a written book?
A written book, I will not say, since the Vodou is embedded in the African culture.
Oral
Many
culture.
of them are not written. It's an oral tradition. And that's why in some society you have people who are, which the task of which is to maintain and to transmit those traditions. And it's done through many patterns. For instance, you have sort of countings, in people telling tales. Tales are a very substantive part of transmission of history in Africa. And for instance, each family has his own, how do you call it, words to praise them. And this praise, when you decount, you can see, you can go and until you reach the forefather who was the founding, so to say, originator of that line of human relation, so and human society. So all that is a society which is really built on orality. We call it orality, but this orality is transmitted from generation to generation, and so also the practices, so also the beliefs, and as you know, we have many types of relationship types mechanism of transmission there. For instance, you have the Fa, which is built on a set of stories and tales, and also combinations which go so far as to empower the one who mastered them to predict the future, to tell you the past and predict you your future. So it's a full mechanism of society, and our university are still working on this to bring them on scientific basis and to share them with humanity. And I think that the colonial power, instead of coming and destroying our shrines and destroying, forbidding the practices, would have been wiser to try to understand them and to really bring them to the forefront to share it with humanity. And this is being done now. Nowadays, we have university professors who really connect to those ancient, so to say, depository of ancient knowledge and try to bring them to light to share it with humanity.
We have a question here, and then the next question right here, and then the next question is going to be, we have a student who's the head of our African student organization on campus, so I have one question, then follow up with this question.
You haven't really talked about the country itself. What about the natural resources? What percentage are involved with agriculture and government? Explain the demographic.
Yes, very quickly I will tell you that Benin is agrarland. Major activity is agriculture. Major part of the population lives out of land, and we have some minerals. We have a glass of oil that we are trying to bring to the market. Benin was an oil exporting country in the 80s because we had drilled some oil wells at the shore, offshore of Benin. I will tell you, 1 week ago, the president of Benin was again visiting Brazil, and one of his major achievements there is to bring Petrobras to come and resume oil exploitation on the coast of Benin. We have some estimate of 5 billion barrels, 5 billion barrels of oil and gas also available there to be exploited. Benin major export product is cotton, but cotton, we have one of the best cotton, equaling, even surpassing Egyptian cotton, and very well demanded, but the price of cotton on the market has brought the peasant not anymore to devote much energy to that, and the production is decreasing, but we are now working to, so to say, revitalize that production. Benin is also developing other types of crops like cashew, coconut. Benin was a major developer of palm oil, and I will tell you, Malaysian prosperity is made on palm oil taken from Benin. Benin has developed a research center to cross palm trees, and is selling those new crops, new seeds to across the world, because our so to say, weather conditions are not anymore favorable to develop palm oil, but we can sell the scientific knowledge to others, and we are working on that. And we are also a country where transit services are very important because we are a gate to hinterland countries which are countries behind Benin, the landlocked countries in the north. Thank you.
Yes.
Ambassador, you mentioned about the large diversity in Benin, the different ethnic groups in a small country. And I experienced the same in my country. Sierra Leone. We have like 12 to 13 different languages in such a small country. Do you think the instability in West Africa is due to these different ethnicities, maybe the cultural differences is causing the less unified country? And also, how have Benin managed to escape that, even though you guys have such a nice, large diversity?
Before you answer, this is a very important question. Is the instability in Africa because of different ethnicities, or is it because of poor governance by leaders who have not taken due account of different ethnicities?
You're definitely right to raise this issue in connection with the question asked by my dear African brother. I will say we think that...
I interrupt you again.
Yes.
Everybody here is an African because the origin of the African species is in East Africa. So
you're right.
Everybody here is an African.
I do agree 100% with you.
So they're all your brothers and sisters.
My brother, my dear brother. So I think our ethnicity, our diversity in ethnicity is not, so to say, an impediment for peaceful coexistence. What separates people is the lack of inclusiveness, the lack of participation, and the lack of having a fair share in the national revenue. So when you put this at the bottom line, then you find people in a country are fighting each other because they are from different ethnic groups. The way the modern system is built puts the people who are in power in, so to say, very stable situation. And if they exercise this power, relying rather on their ethnic groups, and as you know, the access to power is also the way to access the resources. If the people in power exercise power relying only on their ethnic group, they create a situation of frustration, they create a situation which leads to conflict. And this is something we have to fight by making our country, by decentralizing the power in the countries, which gives people at the grassroots the capacity to participate and to have a fair share in the social services, basic social services, and not only looking at others who have power, distributing the goods, what is considered to be the national revenue, in a way that exclude others and marginalize them. So you are definitely right. It's a matter of governance, and it's a matter of sound policy to integrate everybody, to feel everybody, to bring everybody to have, to be concerned, to be part of the decision-making process.
Yes,
so
but
that's what we do in Benin, and all our governments are built on the principle of regional balance. Regional balance meaning that when the government of a country is at the table, everybody is there. Not only a group excluding the others. You will find a minister from the north, a minister from all parts of the country. It's always balanced, and everybody is there, and you have a sense of participation. And that is something that is very specific to Benin. All the governments had cared for what we call regional balance. And regional balance meaning that you get as much representation from different parts of the people as possible, participating in decision-making and sharing, so to say, the responsibility in the country.
Yes, but that makes you very unusual, because in most countries, including the one that we'll not name out of politeness to the soil on which we stand, there's always a 1% and a 99%. And so how is it that you are managing to avoid this problem of 1% and 99%? There's something, I have decided to become, to abandon Islam and become voodoo. I think
it's very simple. It's very simple. When you have wealth, there is something which we say in Benin, you cannot be happy alone. When you are wealthy, you have people around you. When you get your salary as a civil servant, you dispatch it, it trickles down until the village. And this is something which is specific to Benin. We have a very deep sense of solidarity and very deep sense of responsibility to
each other
throughout the family. And sometimes it's so powerful that you can have your salary and share it and be as poor as everybody the next day. And it's considered to be quite normal. And we say in Benin, when you have for one, there is enough for two. When you have for one, there is enough for two. This is quand il y en a pour l'un, quand il y en a pour un, il y en a pour deux. Which is a sense, national value. And I will tell you, you talk about leadership of President Yayi. President Yayi has done something very good and is doing something very good to Benin today. He has brought the Beninese together to revitalize their traditional values. And this went so far as to adopt a national charter for democratic governance, which come to complement the constitution of a country. Because he said, yes, we have a constitution, we agreed on that as a basic document for governing our society, but if we don't apply those rules on the basis of shared values, it will bring us apart again. And we have adopted weeks ago this charter for democratic governance of a country, which is signed by all political parties, major political parties, civil society organizations, and it defines very clearly, I have a copy here that I will give you, it defines very clearly the basis, the values on which we will work together to pursue the prosperity that we all want for our country.
I think we should import President Yayi to become a member of the Republican Party of the United States. It would help.
Anyway, Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for a wonderful discussion, fascinating. Now we really appreciate Benin and Africans. Thank you very much.